A very warm welcome to you wherever it is you're tuned in from Kenya, East Africa and around the world. This is TECHOVER, the show on NTV that discusses all things technology. My name is Brian Jojotieno, NTV's in-house techie. Today, we are talking about influencers and how they are making a buck out of social commerce. What is that even in the first place? If you've heard of the likes of TECHOVER, Wowzy, and so many others that are coming up globally, then they are able to consolidate brands' demands and give those gigs to influencers. We want to explore that whole journey end to end today. But first off, as always, tech news of the week. Today on Tech News of the Week, we focus on data protection and the just concluded Continental NADPAC conference that was hosted here in Nairobi. The NADPAC conference, it's basically the Network of African Data Protection Authorities annual general meeting, which Kenya hosted number 8 of those conferences. And Kenya has commenced talks with the European Union that, if successful, could see a local data protection standard recognized and classified as of similar level with those of the Union members, in a move that will pave the way for free flow of personal data between both jurisdictions without additional regulatory restrictions. Among the benefits that Kenya would stand to gain if the adequacy decision were reached include a boost in digital trade, access to Europe's vast data economy, estimated to be worth over 800 billion euros by 2025, as well as an increase in accessibility of data in a range of areas such as research. The development would see an unlocking of investment opportunities in business processes, outsourcing or rather BPO, and digital service exports. The EU Deputy Head of Mission to Kenya, Ondej Simek, told delegates at the NADPAC conference in Nairobi, over the next 3 months, the EU representatives in Kenya will be working closely with local authorities to explore the possibility of building a self-data bridge between the two economies. For the EU, the most comprehensive legal mechanisms for free and safe cross-border data flows is an adequacy decision. An adequacy decision basically means that a country outside of EU is considered as providing a similar level of protection for personal as level of protection within the EU. As a result, personal data can flow freely between both jurisdictions without any additional regulatory restrictions or conditions. Kenya and the European Union have started a very vast adequacy dialogue on the African continent. This dialogue builds on the many commonalities shared by respective data protection regimes. If successful, these talks could result in an adequacy finding for Kenya. The diplomat equally noted that under such arrangements, Kenya would in a way be assimilated to an EU member state as far as data protection is concerned. This means that data would flow between, for instance, Paris and Nairobi freely as it flows between Paris and Berlin. The disclosure of the data talks comes just months after the EU signed the Economic Partnership Agreement (EPA) with Kenya in a deal that would set pace for trade liberation, offering tariff-free and quota-free access of local exports to the EU. The groundbreaking deal was the culmination of an 8-year negotiation process. The journey began in July 2023 when the European Commission adopted its adequacy decision for the EU and US data privacy framework. The decision concluded that the United States ensures an adequate level of protection comparable to that of European Union for personal data transferred from EU to US companies under the new framework. On the basis of the new adequacy decision, personal data can flow safely from EU to US companies participating in the framework without having to put in place additional data protection safeguards. The EU and US data protection privacy framework introduced new binding safeguards to address all concerns raised by the European Court of Justice, including limiting access to EU data by US intelligence services to what is necessarily and proportionate, and establishing a Data Protection Review Court (DPRC) to which the EU individuals will have access. The new framework introduced significant improvements compared to the mechanisms that exist under the Privacy Shield. For example, if that court finds that data was collected in violation of the new safeguards, it will be able to order the deletion of the data. The new safeguards in the area of government access to data will complement the obligations that the US companies importing data from the EU will have to subscribe to. US companies are also able to join the EU-US data privacy framework by committing to comply with a detailed set of privacy obligations. For instance, the requirement to delete personal data when it is no longer necessary for the purpose for which it was collected, and to ensure continuity of protection when personal data is shared with third parties. EU individuals presently benefit several redress avenues in case their data is wrongly handled by US companies. This includes free of charge independent dispute resolution mechanisms and an arbitration panel. In addition, the US framework provides for a number of safeguards regarding to the access to data transferred under the framework by US public authorities, in particular for criminal law enforcement and national security purposes. Access to data is limited to what it is necessary and proportionate to protect national security. Now you're up to speed with what's happening in the tech world. Time now for that conversation on social commerce and how it is changing the landscape of marketing in our country. I have with me the founder of TECHOVER, Samuel. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Brian.
Great. So let's start with understanding what social commerce is. For someone who's hearing this for the very first time, how would you define social commerce to them?
Yeah, and we like to call it social e-commerce, so that we can start with the e-commerce,
Yeah.
which I believe most of your audience would understand.
Sure.
So then to qualify that is the social part. What's so social about the e-commerce? And it's this idea that we are transacting in social setups. So it has just been digitized, and then that's why you'd say it's e-commerce that is happening on social media platforms or social spheres, not necessarily social media.
Great. Did you ever see a time when marketing would shift now to personalities and this is done digitally online? Because the traditional media, legacy media, how we know it is bring an advert, put it on TV or on a billboard, or just make a post on Facebook. But now people resonate more with personalities and what they stand for, their niche products. Did you ever see that transition happening?
Yes and no.
Okay.
Initially, I didn't even know what influencer marketing was.
Yeah.
So I was studying at the University of Toronto, and then I just bumped into these two gentlemen, and then they were explaining that there's something that's happening. And this is back in 2014. So then I started to understand the nuances of influencer marketing, and then of course we spun the first company that was just doing that. But even with the understanding of what it meant, which is this idea of marketing through personalities, I didn't think it would be as big or as influential as it is today, and more so for a market like ours, the Kenyan market, or African market, if you could extrapolate that. But then once we started to do that, I could start to see why, because folks were moving more online. And more so for the continent, you have a lot of young people who are spending a lot of time online. Yeah. And folks are only going to influence them where they are spending time. So then you start to see trends, and that it's actually going to be a thing down the line. But now it is around this time that you're starting to see the impact that it can create for brands. And by proxy, of course, it's going to grow.
Great. So what's your experience like working with personalities who have a community? In short, influencers to the viewer.
Yeah.
Personalities that have a community and how they handle that community to make sure that it's converting to the client who you work with.
Yeah. So number one, there has been evolution of what we know to be an influencer.
Sure.
Initially was the celebrity influencers, and then people start to realize that there are smaller influencers, the mid-tier, the micro, the nano, that are more niche. They are speaking to a very niche community, and then the engagement rate there and the conversions are better in the sense that, yeah, you're just talking to a community of, say, 200 people, say, in a WhatsApp group, because those are also influencers, the group admins that convene people to that platform. So there has been that evolution. So for celebrities, these are people who have a brand. It is very easy to work with them. So as you start to work with the micros and the nanos, then the relationship must start at capacity building. You guide them in terms of how to package yourself, how to create content that resonates. But nonetheless, it has been an amazing journey to see the evolution and to have conversations with these influencers across the spectrum.
How would you differentiate between Kenyan influencers and the rest of the world if you've worked with them too?
Yeah. So the first thing is the size of the market. So if you're in Kenya, if you are to reach everyone, it would be 50 million, which we know won't happen because of the penetration of, internet, social media, smart devices,
Sure.
and whatnot. So if you're in the US, we are speaking hundreds of millions of people. So you have more opportunity there. So that's the difference in terms of the reach. But also, there's other nuances around it. Culture is one of those. How we engage, the type of content we create online is different. And of course, the opportunity in the sense that the brands they have to pay them to monetize what they do so that they can do more of that. We don't have the same opportunities in Kenya. Yeah.
Great. So what's the difference between your product and a marketing agency?
Number one, you talked about product
Yeah.
and an agency.
Yeah.
So I would believe that an agency sort of consolidates and then outsources the work. But they outsource the work to products like TECHOVER. You can call it a platform.
Okay.
So we are tech-enabled or tech-powered in the sense that we are using a platform, whether it's a website or an application, to facilitate or to create value. If I was to extrapolate on that point, how do you create content? And in this day and age where you can even use AI to optimize and to make it easier for people to create content. If you're an agency, you're having to outsource that work to a platform that can do that. So the sharp difference is that we are more tech-enabled, while these guys are more network-driven.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. So how has your tech platform been convenient for brands, especially who want to reach this niche community and hope to convert out of that?
Yeah. So the first thing for brands that are trying to raise awareness around their brand or their product and services, you want to match them with a strategic marketer who, in this case, is the influencer. But the biggest problem, and again, if you are going through an agency and they have a lot of value to offer, it is that there is a human bias. If I told you what kind of an influencer would you want to work with to promote your brand, you're likely to name people that you know.
Yeah.
Right? But that doesn't necessarily mean that those are the strategic people that you should work in terms of alignment with brand values and the objectives of the campaign that you're pushing. So then the tech, the first thing it does is to help you remove the human bias to hire the strategic influencer.
Okay.
And this is to say things like their nuances matters platform. Should you work with an Instagram influencer or a Facebook influencer? What age should you work with? What sector are they in? And then you go far to look at their audience. Who do they talk to so that you see whether they are aligned with the objectives of the campaign or what you want to do with your brand. So we call that an influencer discovery module, which is this idea of how do we match you with the strategic and the right influencer for the purpose that you intend it to be. And then, of course, if you're going to be working with 100 or 1,000 or more influencers and they are nano, you're going to use productivity tools to manage them. And then once you distribute this content across all the social media platforms, then you need to measure the return on investment. So you need a digital tool because these conversations are happening online. And we call these social listening tools. Because then you can only optimize your strategy or course correct if you have data that guides you to do that. And to do that, you need tools to track these conversations online.
Amazing. Lastly, with the disruption you're causing in the market currently, do you foresee a time when legacy media would be sort of extinct because social commerce exists?
I would say yes and no. And the reason why I say that is, we still have horses. We just use them for different purposes, not necessarily for as a means of mobility.
Hey, that's deep, man.
But that said, I truly believe that traditional media is just going to evolve, and it's currently evolving. Like you look at YouTube and you can stream news on YouTube, right? Initially that was not the medium that traditional media were using to reach people. So I believe they're just going to evolve and be something different compared to what we know them to be. And I say that because there's a lot of experience, a lot of insights, a lot of networks that they can tap into and then evolve to fit the current consumer and the target audience.
Great. Peter, thank you so much for coming through and for telling us what social e-commerce is all about. And I hope the viewer has gained something out of it. And that's where we wrap up the first bit of the show. We'll be back with Startup of the Week on the other side of the show. Don't go too far. This is TECHOVER. Welcome back. You're watching TECHOVER, the show that discusses all things technology. Time now for our Startup of the Week. Here then is our founder this week. The gig economy is gradually changing the nature of how Kenya's workforce accesses jobs, shifting the source of work opportunities from informal labor to digital platforms. At least 1.2 million Kenyans are working online, earning an average of 20,000 shillings per month, according to a 2021 study by the Kenyan Ministry of ICT. The last decade has seen a spike in Kenyans accessing remote jobs and making a living through online work. In the same decade, there has been a sharp surge in cybercrime and money laundering through online payment platforms, leading to delays and sometimes, worst of all, blocking of payments of freelancers, with authorities disguising payments as proceeds of online fraud. This challenge led Benaya Wepundi and Jafet Achimba to come up with Paid, a fintech that assists freelancers to get paid directly with ease.
Basically at Paid, you're building a payments platform, a payments and financial management platform for freelancers, creatives, and gig workers. Yeah, how that works is a freelancer is able to create a custom payments page or generate payment links and QR codes or automate their invoicing and receipting. And at the end of the day, the goal is just to have all their payments on one platform so that they can be able to track these payments and just understand their finances better.
Typical of a startup, they had to multitask, working in almost every category to see their child on its feet. Their innovation helped them win 4 million shillings grant under the incubation of Powerland Project PLP, a program that seeks to train 1 million African developers with modern in-demand tech skills. This grant includes a 3.5 million shillings milestone-based funding and an additional 500,000 Kenya shillings in technical support to develop their innovative payment platform further.
Yeah, it has been really an awesome journey, and us winning the Mozilla, I can say it's really a boost for us, because getting just that validation and people being able now to say, go, now your product is good, yeah, it's really awesome for us, and like it will enable us even now achieve our goals of scaling across Africa. Now we are like setting down like strategies of partnership and just being able to get into interactions and collaboration like with the guys already in the market, because as they say, on top here is just collaboration, there's no competition. Yeah, so just getting in that collaboration and ensuring like we get the right compliances, because as you know, fintech really attracts like many insecurities and stuff, so just being able to ensure that our product is safe for our users, being able to capitalize on cutting-edge technologies like blockchain and artificial intelligence, and just getting to have the right compliances from different authorities.
Albert Kimani, head of programs at PLP, says that Paid stood out as one of the key solutions in their training that will address the skills gap currently witnessed in Africa.
So Paid is one of the projects coming out of the Powerland cohorts. Just to give context to that, the program design is such that it's a skills to work sort of program. So we are building skills for them to be applied immediately, as opposed to the traditional or the typical way at which educational institutions usually work. So for that, we included a component in the program such that for you to graduate, you're not necessarily doing tests and passing and getting A's or passes or failures. You are actually submitting an application that you're actually working on that is going to go out there and solve problems that are being experienced by the communities which we are living in.
Albert says with an ambitious goal of training 1 million young Africans, PLP has already trained a little over 10,000 students just a year after its launch, and with a footprint in 5 countries. He notes that apart from software engineering, the Internet of Things, data analytics, machine learning and artificial intelligence remain key sectors anyone interested in the tech world should pay attention to. Time now for Tech Tip of the Week, and then we'll just close the show.
Hi guys, and welcome to this week's Tech Tip of the Week. In today's digital world, being online is essential for any business. So today I will be showing you how you can set up a Google profile for your business. The first step is going to business.google.com, then click Manage Now. Then write the name of your business. Choose the business type, if it's an online retailer, a store, or a service business. Then if you already have an online store, you can add the link to the website right here. Then click Continue. Then write the business type, and then put the physical address of your business. Then you can add your phone number so that it is easy for people to contact. Then click Continue. Then right here you need to specify the working hours of your business. So you can turn on the days when your business is operating, and then specify what time you'll be open and what time you'll be closed. After that, you'll need to enable the message element so that people are able to message you. Then click Continue. Then here you can write a brief description about your business. Then next, you'll need to add photos of your business. So you can upload pictures of the location so that it is easy for people to see it, and a lot more pictures to complement it. Then click Continue, and that's it. You can always edit this later if you want. That's it for this week. See you in the next one.
Very well, and that's a fair point to close the show at. Thank you so much for tuning in to Take Over, the show that discusses all things technology. I am Brian Giorgettiano. Stay techie and may tech live forever. Until next week, see you on the next one.